boys, they said you couldn't do that. But they proved it all wrong, you know. So as you sat there and got hypnotized into this, Eddie just had to just sing to himself. Maggie Brain, a brother crying his soul out. Maggie Brain is a state of mind. All right, to get you out of the heroin.
More than 3 decades after Eddie Hazel's death, fans are still uncovering shocking truths about the Funkadelic guitar legend.
He's a guy that discovered electric guitar and distortion and feedback with a vengeance.
Born in Brooklyn in 1950 and raised in Plainfield, New Jersey, Hazel's talent was undeniable.
I think his early experiments with drugs, very much like mine, psychedelic drugs, I kind of influenced a lot of what he did and how he heard music, how he heard sound.
His guitar and voice turning heads from church choirs to George Clinton's parliaments. But beneath the electrifying solos and show-stopping performances, a darker story was brewing. A world of personal struggles, legal battles, and creative clashes that would leave an indelible mark on his music and his life. Eddie Hazel was born on April 10, 1950, in Brooklyn, New York, but his early years weren't spent in the heart of the city. His mother, Grace Cook, wanted to shield him from the streets, the drugs, and the crime she saw around her. So, Eddie grew up in Plainfield, New Jersey, a smaller town that she hoped would give him a safer environment to grow up in. Ironically, Plainfield wasn't completely free from challenges, but it offered Eddie a place to focus on music. From a young age, Hazel showed a deep love for music. One Christmas, his older brother bought him a guitar, and that simple gift would change the course of his life. He spent countless hours teaching himself how to play, experimenting with sounds, and practicing until his fingers could move as fast as his imagination. In addition to the guitar, Eddie sang in church, learning to blend emotion with melody, a skill that would later make his solos legendary. When he was 12, Eddie met Billy Bass Nelson. The two clicked immediately, bonding over their love for music. They spent countless afternoons and evenings playing together, teaching each other new techniques and learning how to harmonize their voices. Soon after, they met drummer Harvey McGee, forming a trio that would jam to all the early Motown hits, trying to replicate the sounds of their favorite records. These early sessions weren't just practice, they were the foundation of the musical chemistry that would define Funkadelic. By the mid-1960s, Hazel was already showing signs of the raw talent that would make him famous. His ability to merge rhythm with emotion, combined with a natural feel for melody, set him apart from other young musicians. While other kids in Plainfield were worried about school or sports, Eddie spent his free time perfecting his sound, learning chords, and experimenting with tones that would later define his signature style. In 1967, Hazel's world began to shift dramatically. The Parliaments, a doo-wop group from Plainfield, led by George Clinton, had just scored a hit with I Wanna Testify. They were preparing to tour and needed a solid backing band. Nelson, already friends with Hazel, suggested he join as guitarist. At first, there was a problem. Eddie was busy in Newark, working with producer George Blackwell. His mother was hesitant to let her 17-year-old son tour with a group of wild musicians, fearing the negative influences that came with the road. Despite her concerns, Clinton and Nelson worked together to convince Grace Cook. They promised to protect Eddie and ensure he stayed focused on his music. Eventually, she agreed, and Eddie joined the Parliaments tour in September 1967. During this period, he met Tiki Fullwood, the Uptown Theater's house drummer, and the two formed an instant connection. Fullwood would later become Hazel's closest musical collaborator, and the two, along with Nelson, would form the backbone of what would soon evolve into Funkadelic. From these humble beginnings in Brooklyn and Plainfield, Eddie Hazel's journey into music history had begun. His raw talent, early collaborations, and dedication to his craft set the stage for a career that would change funk, rock, and guitar playing forever. By late 1967, Eddie Hazel had officially joined the Parliaments tour. His mother's fears about the road, drugs, and wild lifestyles didn't stop him from diving into the music scene. On tour, Hazel met Tiki Fulwood, the house drummer at Philadelphia's Uptown Theater, and the two clicked immediately. Fulwood replaced the Parliaments drummer, and with Hazel on guitar and Billy Nelson on bass, the trio became the tight rhythm section that would soon form the foundation of Funkadelic. The transition from the Parliaments to Funkadelic didn't happen overnight. Initially, Funkadelic was just a backing band for the Parliaments, playing the shows while the vocal group took center stage. But as the group experimented with sounds, the musical focus shifted.
What's the more popular songs you're known for George Clinton's band?
One Nation Under Groove, Flashlight.
Hazel's guitar playing brought a raw, fiery energy, blending rhythm and blues with psychedelic rock in ways few had ever heard. He brought a Hendrix-like intensity, but added a heavy funk twist that was uniquely his own. By 1970, Funkadelic had fully emerged as a separate entity. The band added Tall Ross on rhythm guitar and Bernie Worrell on keyboards, completing the lineup that would release 3 landmark albums in rapid succession, with Funkadelic in 1970, Free Your Mind, and Your Ass Will Follow in 1970, and Maggot Brain in 1971.
Okay, in 77 you had a album come out.
Warner Brothers, right?
Do you think you're going to be doing another one?
Yeah, very shortly.
Hazel's guitar dominated these records, providing not just rhythm, but emotional depth, innovation, and unrestrained creativity.
You know, because the rhythm and the time is right, and I'm ready to go.
Are you going to be doing more of the writing, or do you think...
Well, both.
Maggot Brain, the title track of the 1971 album, became Hazel's defining moment. The 10-minute solo showcased his extraordinary skill, blending anguish, beauty, and improvisation. George Clinton reportedly instructed Hazel to imagine he had just been told that his mother had died during the first half of the solo, then that she was alive again in the second half. Hazel poured every ounce of emotion into his playing, creating a performance that fans and musicians still consider one of the greatest guitar solos of all time. Clips of live performances from this era reveal Hazel's almost supernatural ability to bend notes, stretch melodies, and captivate audiences with his tone and timing. The band's early success wasn't without tension. Hazel and other members struggled with finances and the pressures of fame. Creative disagreements with Clinton occasionally flared, but the music remained the driving force. Hazel's innovative approach to guitar, mixing fuzz, and distorted leads set Funkadelic apart from other acts and influenced countless musicians who followed. His presence on stage was magnetic. Audiences could feel the intensity of his playing even if they didn't fully understand its technical mastery. Even during this period of genius, Hazel's personal life began showing cracks. There were early signs of substance use, which would later escalate. But in these years, the music took center stage. The first 3 albums of Funkadelic established the band as pioneers of funk rock, with Hazel's guitar work at the core. His solos were not just embellishments, they were emotional statements, often overshadowing the rest of the instrumentation. From his early days with the Parliaments to the revolutionary sounds of Funkadelic, Hazel had become a musical force. He was no longer just a young guitarist from Plainfield. He was shaping the sound of a generation, pushing boundaries, and laying the groundwork for funk and rock guitarists for decades to come. The world was beginning to recognize the genius of Eddie Hazel. By the early 1970s, Eddie Hazel's music had reached new heights, but behind the scenes, his personal life was unraveling. The fame, long tours, and constant pressure to innovate created an environment where Hazel increasingly turned to drugs and alcohol.
Eddie was one of those guys with superior technique that took a lot of acid and just went out from there.
Sources indicate that George Clinton, noticing Hazel's growing unreliability, suspended his pay at times, likely a way to prevent him from spending money on substances. The impact was immediate. Hazel's contributions to America Eats Its Young in 1972 were minimal, and tensions grew within Funkadelic. Hazel wasn't the only one struggling. Fellow members of the band faced their own substance issues, but Hazel's addiction quickly became a central concern.
We took all the acid in the world. I don't think there was any left.
Do you think that any of that really affected some of the groups in later life?
Yeah.
He and Billy Bass Nelson eventually quit Funkadelic over financial disputes with Clinton. Even though nothing is proven, all evidence suggests that the combination of pay suspensions, creative pressure, and substance abuse created a toxic cycle that threatened Hazel's career at its peak. During this turbulent period, Hazel sought other musical outlets. Between 1973 and 1974, he began working with The Temptations, contributing guitar parts to their 1973 album 1990, and co-writing a track for A Song for You in 1975. This work allowed Hazel to maintain his craft, even while his standing in Funkadelic faltered. Some fans think these collaborations kept him connected to the industry and showcased that, despite his personal struggles, his talent remained undeniable. Hazel returned to Funkadelic in 1974, but legal and financial obstacles forced him to take unusual steps. To sidestep publishing issues, 6 songs on Standing on the Verge of Getting It On were credited not to Hazel, but to his mother, Grace Cook. Even though it was a workaround, it demonstrated Hazel's continued creativity and commitment to music despite ongoing personal challenges. However, Hazel's growing substance abuse caught up with him in a serious way. In 1974, he faced an indictment related to an airline incident where he assaulted a stewardess, along with charges of drug possession. While he served time, George Clinton brought in a young 17-year-old guitarist, Michael Hampton, who impressed the band by performing a note-for-note version of Maggot Brain. Hampton's arrival effectively replaced Hazel as the lead guitarist, a move that would change the dynamics of Funkadelic permanently. Even after his release, Hazel's role in the band was diminished. On Let's Take It to the Stage in 1975, he was credited only on the first 2 tracks, often under the pseudonym G. Cook. On Hardcore Jollies in 1976, his presence was largely background, with only one prominent appearance on Comin' Round the Mountain. These years marked a sharp contrast from the glory of his earlier work, showcasing the devastating impact of his addiction and legal troubles. Despite these setbacks, Hazel's influence remained. Clips from studio sessions and interviews reveal that even in reduced roles, his creativity and unique guitar voice were unmistakable. The genius that had electrified audiences on Maggot Brain still lingered, though it was now shadowed by the realities of addiction and legal complications. By 1974, Eddie Hazel's life and career had reached a turning point. His struggles with drugs, brushes with the law, and shifting position in Funkadelic set the stage for a career that would never again reach the heights of his early years. The shocking truth, which fans only fully understood decades later, was that Hazel's immense talent was being undermined by forces both inside and outside the band. After his release from legal troubles, Eddie Hazel returned to Funkadelic in 1974, but the landscape had changed. Michael Hampton had already stepped in as the new lead guitarist, earning acclaim for his flawless renditions of Hazel's own solos, including the iconic Maggot Brain. Even though Hazel was back, he was no longer the central figure in the band he had helped define.
But he did pop up here and there to feature on some of both Parliament and Funkadelic's work, although on that very good Funkadelic album from 1973, Cosmic Slop, Eddie Hazel's barely on that one.
His presence was felt on Standing on the Verge of Getting It On, where he co-wrote several tracks, but often under the pseudonym of his mother, Grace Cook, to navigate publishing complications. Despite reduced recognition within Funkadelic, Hazel's creative spirit remained strong. He collaborated closely with George Clinton on arrangements and lead guitar parts, contributing to both Funkadelic and Parliament recordings during this period. For instance, Hazel's work on the 1974 Parliament album, Up for the Downstroke, demonstrated that, even when sidelined, he could still bring the signature intensity and emotion to every note. Studio clips from this era reveal Hazel experimenting with fuzz tones, wah pedals, and other effects, maintaining the guitar style that had made him a rising star years earlier. In 1977, Hazel took a significant step by recording his solo album, Game, Dames, and Guitar Thangs, released through Warner Brothers. The album featured a mix of originals and covers, including interpretations of California Dreamin' and The Beatles' I Want You, She's So Heavy. Hazel's lead guitar dominated every track, blending his funk foundation with rock and psychedelic flourishes. The Brides of Funkenstein contributed backing vocals, further cementing the album's connection to the broader P-Funk family. For fans and collectors, the album became a rare gem, originally available only on vinyl, showcasing Hazel's guitar work at its most personal and unrestrained. Even during his solo ventures, Hazel remained connected to the wider Funkadelic world. He played with various P-Funk ensembles, including the P-Funk All-Stars, and recorded sporadic tracks for the band. Yet, despite these opportunities, Hazel never regained the central spotlight he had enjoyed during the band's early years. Interviews and contemporary articles suggest that his ongoing struggles with substance abuse limited both his reliability and his capacity to take on more prominent roles. Fans often point to Hazel's solo work as a window into his genius moments where he was entirely in control, free to explore melodies, textures, and emotions without compromise. Tracks like those on Game, Dames, and Guitar Thangs highlight the blend of funk, rock, and soul that defined his style. Even though he was operating outside the main Funkadelic framework, the influence of his earlier work on the band's sound remained undeniable. By the end of the 1970s, Hazel had firmly established himself as a legendary guitarist, even if his personal demons and shifting role in Funkadelic meant that he wasn't always at the forefront. Clips from live shows and studio sessions from this era reveal a musician still brimming with creativity, proving that, despite setbacks, Eddie Hazel's voice and influence in funk and rock were far from extinguished. This period demonstrated both resilience and compromise. Hazel returned to music, explored solo work, and continued to define guitar innovation, all while navigating the realities of diminished fame and ongoing personal struggles. By the late 1970s, Eddie Hazel's position in Funkadelic had steadily diminished. He was completely absent from One Nation Under a Groove in 1978, Funkadelic's most commercially successful album. Even though nothing is proven, all evidence points toward ongoing substance abuse and strained relationships with bandmates as reasons for his reduced involvement. His creative input, once central to the P-Funk sound, became sporadic, limited to occasional sessions and guest appearances. Hazel did maintain a presence in the music world through select projects. He appeared on tracks like Comin' Round the Mountain from Hardcore Jollies in 1976 and contributed to George Clinton's 1982 album Computer Games, as well as P-Funk All-Stars Urban Dance Floor Gorillas in the early 1980s. Even in these appearances, however, he was rarely credited as a central figure. Fans often point to these contributions as evidence of Hazel's enduring talent, demonstrating that even when sidelined, his guitar work retained its emotional power and technical brilliance. During this period, Hazel's personal struggles intensified. Sources suggest that he became increasingly dependent on drugs and alcohol, which, combined with financial instability, led to a challenging lifestyle. By the 1980s, Hazel faced health issues linked to long-term substance abuse, including chronic stomach problems. Interviews and contemporary reports indicate that he sometimes relied on his mother, Grace Cook, for housing and support, showing just how far his life had shifted from the early days of touring and recording with Funkadelic. Despite these difficulties, Hazel continued to make music whenever possible. In 1990, he performed live at a show titled A Night for Jimi Hendrix, the Live at Lingerie Club Hollywood, showing that his skills remained sharp even as his body and personal life struggled to keep pace. Though fewer recordings emerged during these years, posthumous releases such as the 1994 EP Jams from the Heart and 2000's Rest in P highlighted unreleased material, reminding fans of Hazel's extraordinary talent and cementing his legacy as a guitar innovator. As the 1990s approached, Hazel's health deteriorated further. His lifelong battle with substance abuse took a severe toll on his liver and internal organs. On December 23, 1992, Hazel passed away in Plainfield, New Jersey, from internal bleeding and liver failure. At his funeral, the band and attendees honored him by playing Maggot Brain, an evidence of the enduring impact of his music. Even after his death, Hazel's influence on funk, rock, and guitar playing continued to inspire musicians worldwide. Hazel's later years were complicated. His music slowed down, and health and addiction struggles made life harder, yet the impact of his earlier work never faded. In interviews and clips from that time, you can still see someone deeply connected to his guitar, even when life felt heavy. He was a brilliant musician whose playing defined an era, but the pressures around him took their toll. Even as he stepped out of the spotlight, his influence didn't fade. His recordings keep showing the unique skill and creativity that made him unforgettable. Eddie Hazel's death in 1992 didn't end his influence, it amplified it. His 10-minute solo on Maggot Brain remains one of the greatest guitar solos ever, often mentioned alongside legends like Jimi Hendrix. In 2023, Rolling Stone ranked Hazel number 29 on their list of the 250 greatest guitarists, a reminder that his impact endures.
Reporting to you from Scotts Plains, New Jersey. I'm here at Hillside Cemetery. I'm paying my respects to a guitarist that was named number 43 by Rolling Stones. The person I'm talking about is Eddie Hazel.
After his death, unreleased material began surfacing. The 1994 EP Jams from the Heart was the first, followed by reissues of Game, Dames, and Guitar Thangs, Rest in P in 2000, and Eddie Hazel at Home in 2006. Each release highlighted his improvisational genius, blending funk, psychedelic rock, and soul into something unmistakably his. Fans got a rare glimpse into his private, experimental side, hearing the depth of his creativity beyond the stage. Hazel's influence stretches far beyond P-Funk. John Frusciante paid tribute on The Empyrean. Nick Cave cited him as a favorite, and Bootsy Collins honored him on Goodnight Eddie. Bands like Ween and Primal Scream also referenced his work, showing how his emotional, technically daring style reshaped guitar in funk and rock. Modern musicians continue to study his phrasing, bends, and tones, often citing his ability to make a single note feel like a story. Posthumous recognition continued with his 1997 induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, alongside Parliament Funkadelic. Tribute shows, documentaries, and deep dives into Maggot Brain keep introducing new audiences to his brilliance. Despite addiction and legal struggles, Hazel's music remains powerful. Live clips and studio sessions reveal a guitarist who could pour raw feeling into every note. Fans still marvel at the Eddie Hazel effect, discovering unreleased tracks that showcase what might have been. His legacy isn't just in accolades or recordings. It's alive in every musician he inspires, 33 years after his passing. His story reminds us how fleeting life can be, but how eternal true artistry is.